The Eagles might have had the best offseason of any team in the NFL, but don't let the flashy new signings and massive draft haul deflect from the fact that the new Eagles offensive coordinator might be the biggest factor in the Birds getting back to the Super Bowl, while also turning their current quarterback into an NFL MVP. Thomas Mott, this is the Thomas Mott Show. Kellen Moore has one job this season, and no, it's not to babysit Nick Sirianni or to make sure Saquon Barkley gets his touches or even to make sure A.J. Brown gets 13-plus touchdowns in 2024. Those things are hopefully going to happen naturally in the Eagles' new-look offense, but Kellen Moore's one job this season is to make Jalen Hurts a unanimous top-5 NFL quarterback and turn him into an NFL MVP. But don't get me wrong, I love Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to be incredible this year in Eagles green, so let's do a little giveaway. One of my subscribers who comments Saquon down below in the comment section of this video is going to win this Kelly Green Saquon Barkley Nike t-shirt. We'll give it away sometime next week. Subscribe, comment, and we'll see who wins it next week. But let's go back to the issue at hand. First off, how do we know Kellen Moore is actually up for the job? Just how is he going to accomplish the feat of turning a very good Eagles quarterback into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Well, let's first just go ahead and confirm the credentials and go back in time a little bit here. Before he was the hotshot young offensive coordinator in the NFL, Kellen Moore was a quarterback, and honestly, a really good one back in his college days for the Boise State Broncos. During his 4 years in Idaho, Moore won 50 of 53 games. Think about that, and he still owns the NCAA record for the most wins by any college quarterback, to include, of course, his perfect 14-0 2009 season. But despite all of this NCAA success, it was at Boise State, and so during the 2012 NFL Draft, 11 quarterbacks, including Andrew Luck, RG3, Brock Osweiler, Russell Wilson, Nick Foles, and Kirk Cousins, would all be taken ahead of Moore, who would go undrafted and sign with the Detroit Lions under then-head coach Jim Caldwell. In Detroit, Moore would back up Dan Orlovsky for 2 seasons before signing an extension in 2015, although he would later be cut during the final 53-man roster cuts a couple of months after signing that contract extension. Moore would find his next home, some would call his forever home, a couple of weeks later when he signed with the Dallas Cowboys to be one of their many quarterbacks on their roster, and he would bounce back and forth between the active roster and the practice squad on and off, back and forth throughout his entire Cowboy career. And he didn't play much, only appearing in 3 regular season games and losing both of his starts. But after a fractured fibula in 2017 and clearly no way to make it onto the actual starting roster of the Dallas Cowboys, Moore would eventually retire in 2018 and then begin his, what is now, historic coaching career as the Cowboys QB coach before, of course, moving up the ranks to the offensive coordinator we know and hopefully love today. Now, he's been an offensive coordinator in 2 different areas before Philly, but the Dallas offensive coordinator years are really what got Kellen Moore his current job with Philadelphia right now. As Dallas's offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore led the Cowboys offense to have the second most points per game and second in total offense from 2019 to 2022. Twice, the Cowboys had the top offense in yards per game and led the league in scoring in 2021. And there are a lot of reasons why the Cowboys were so successful. Dak Prescott played well, they had good weapons on the outside, they had a very solid running game in Ezekiel Elliott, but I would argue the main focus of Kellen Moore's success has got to be his pre-snap motion. And that's kind of where we have to switch over from Kellen Moore to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. No one is denying that. I think very few people really in the entire NFL can actually go ahead and deny the fact that he's been very, very good the past couple of years. But Jalen Hurts' rise from second-round quarterback to backup to $255 million man a couple of years ago has been pretty interesting overall. For instance, year 1 back in 2021, the Eagles' offense was mainly built around running the football and kind of RPOing their way around utilizing Jalen Hurts' quick release and elite running skills to keep defenses guessing. And it worked for a time until the Birds ran into a defense that kind of forced Jalen to win with his arm in the 2021 wildcard game in Tampa, and Jalen was only able to complete 50% of his 43 passes and had 2 very bad interceptions. Then, of course, cue the 2022 iteration of the Eagles offense, and one big change to really help tip the tide in the Eagles' favor: A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown on the outside. A.J. Brown, paired with Shane Steichen's offense in year 2 and a much-improved throwing version of Jalen Hurts, really made the Eagles' offense almost impossible to stop during what was, at least turned out to be, a run all the way to the Super Bowl. But then last year hit, and Jalen Hurts' meteoric rise to the top in 2022 kind of all grinded to a halt, and whether you blame Brian Johnson, the new OC, or Nick Sirianni, Hurts' potential knee injury, or just a combination of all of these things, the Eagles quarterback definitely went from top 5 to maybe top 10 right in front of our eyes. And let's be fair though, a lot of the issues issues were more scheme-wise than quarterback-wise. I mean, the Eagles' offense ran screen passes on third down and long all the time, or on third down and short, they'd somehow randomly run 4 verticals. This resulted in Jalen pressing a lot more and doing a lot more improv than he did in 2022, creating a lot more turnovers than he had during the Super Bowl run. I mean, the final 4 games the Eagles had down the stretch to kind of lock up the NFC East all included a Jalen Hurts interception, which thankfully resulted in Brian Johnson being let go, and of course now Kellen Moore being hired to fix the entire Eagle offensive mess that he inherited this season. But how exactly is Kellen Moore going to do that? What are his big key points he has to focus in on to make sure he gets the most out of the entire offense, but mainly Jalen Hurts as well? Well, first, let's go back to pre-snap motion. It's something Jalen Hurts and the Eagles did less than 95% of other NFL teams in the entire league last season. Giving your quarterback the ability to look at the answers before the test has been a staple of star quarterbacks for decades. The problem is it's way easier said than done, and if you haven't been doing it a lot, you might not be that good at it. And Jalen Hurts hasn't really done a lot of pre-snap reads because the Eagles haven't asked him to over his first 3 seasons. Most of his reads have been happening during the play in kind of an RPO format. Adding motion before the play should hopefully help give Jalen the information he needs, but too much could definitely be overwhelming, which of course Kellen Moore himself did mention during a press conference a couple of weeks ago, saying, quote, "We want them to have the ability to make adjustments necessary. We can't dilute it to the point that he's got 50 million things he can potentially do at the line of scrimmage, and now we're not all on the same page. A lot of times the quarterback note is what it is, but it's also making sure all 11 are tied to what the adjustments are." Pre-snap motion is going to be a crucial part of the Eagles' success in 2024. The main question is, how quickly can he get Jalen Hurts up to speed? Well, that all results naturally on Kellen Moore's shoulders. Next, Moore's got to go back to the real basics of Jalen Hurts as a weapon on offense. He's got to make sure he keeps the threat of Jalen running alive. Statistically, Hurts only ran the ball 8 fewer times in 2023 versus 2022, but his potential, maybe injury or just the effectiveness of his rushing really regressed, where he went from over 50 yards rushing per game to just 35 this past year. Winning from the pocket is something every single quarterback has got to be able to do, and it has to be their first instinct, but Jalen Hurts has the ability to run, and if you have the ability to be a good runner as a quarterback, it can create some serious mismatches on defenses, and really, most defenses have trouble guarding running quarterbacks, and while you want to make sure Jalen Hurts stays healthy and obviously throws and wins from the pocket, making sure there are still plenty of rushing opportunities for your QB1 is going to be crucial for Kellen Moore. Next, the Eagles offensive coordinator must put a heavy emphasis on throwing across the middle this season. Throwing across the middle has been one of Jalen's least favorite things to do historically throughout his first 3 seasons. Like, they ran 13 fewer plays across the middle in 2023 each game than they did in 2022. And Hurts, of course, threw 4 more interceptions across the middle than he did during the Super Bowl run. The good news is targeting the middle of the field is something Kellen Moore was known for in Dallas and LA, and it's mainly due to the fact that the middle of the defenses is usually a weak area, at least as far as coverage goes. There's a lot of clutter, especially during man coverages, there's linebackers who don't cover well, and there's a bunch of space on both the right and left side for elite receivers like A.J. Brown who do work. Now, of course, this also can be a little bit more dangerous as more bodies are flying around the area, which, of course, like we said, Hurts experienced last season with all the interceptions. But throwing in the middle also means you can get the ball out way quicker, which was a massive issue for the Eagles this past year, as they gave up 40% more pressure on Hurts in 2023 than they did under Steichen in 2022. The Eagles have the weapons to eat across the middle of the football field. A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, throw in Dallas Goedert as well. They just didn't really utilize it last year, whether that's part of the scheming or just because Jalen Hurts doesn't feel comfortable, we don't really know, but that's something they're going to have to work on and get much better at in order to vastly improve this season. Finally, Kellen Moore has got to get Jalen Hurts a lot more comfortable throwing to his left. Like, I know we just talked about the middle of the football field, and I know Hurts is right-handed, so naturally throwing right is a lot easier, but he's got a tendency to just basically avoid the left side of the field all too often, which defenses clearly have keyed up on, especially this past season. And if this feels a little too nitpicky, you got to remember, Kellen Moore's job is to turn Jalen Hurts into an MVP caliber quarterback, which means he's got to be able to put the football anywhere on the field depending on which way defenses are cheating. I mean, this stat last year tells it all. Just deep passes in general from Jalen Hurts. All 3 areas of the field. 50% of Jalen Hurts' deep balls went to the right, with only 31% going to the left and only 18% to the middle. If I know that and you know that, don't you think defensive coordinators also have understood that and have probably shifted a lot of their defenses to the right side of the field in order to maybe force Jalen to throw to the side that he doesn't like throwing to? Now, I'll throw in a bonus here. I mean, running under center is something Philadelphia has got to get better at and something they basically never did unless you count the brotherly shove as a run under center, which I guess it technically is, but they really never handed the football off to a running back when their quarterback was under center, really, Jalen Hurts' entire career. Moore should dramatically fix this in early minicamp reports reports have confirmed that Hurts has been seen working a lot more under center, and running under center creates a lot of advantages that a lot of people don't talk about, including giving Saquon Barkley the ability to hit the hole a lot faster, including giving him a running start, which last season we saw the Eagles do a ton of shotgun runs on 3rd down and short, which basically takes a 3rd down and 2 and turns it into a 3rd down and 6 or 7 challenge. And Eagles' offensive line has elite run blockers up front. They have the ability to create a ton of holes, and even small holes that Saquon Barkley can find or should be able to find, burst through, and create a lot more chunk running plays than they had this past season. And a strong run game means a strong passing game because A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith give a lot more favorable matchups, a lot more one-on-ones. It also gives Jalen Hurts the ability to boot out of the pocket with play action and make plays with both his arm and legs, something we saw very little in 2023 and a lot more in 2022. But with all of these suggestions and real keys to Jalen Hurts' success under Kellen Moore, we got to remember, they were 10-1 last year on almost pure talent alone and a lot of improv from Jalen. It was really once their talent couldn't outperform the bad scheme under Brian Johnson that everything started going downhill those final 7 weeks of the year. Now, it all sounds very simple, and I do think all of these things are going to be implemented very, very quickly and definitely happen for the Philadelphia Eagles offense, but it's going to take time, and it's one thing why I'm very excited to see exactly how quickly Jalen Hurts can learn all of this. He's been studying like crazy, according to reports during minicamp and OTAs, but training camp, preseason, you might see him play a little bit more, and the first couple of weeks of the year are going to be crucial to his development and really becoming the perfect quarterback that Kellen Moore wants in his new offensive system. We got plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. Again, go comment Saquon Barkley down below to get entered into the Saquon Barkley Nike NFL t-shirt giveaway happening next week, and we'll see you guys in the next video. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been The Thomas Mott Show.